Now that we've sorted out Rabbasca, at least for the time being, it's time to take a look at what else has been going on around the solar system recently. It's a big place, and there's always something that needs fixing or improving. Welcome to Laurence Plays Factorio Planetary Pioneers, where we're starting on Nauvis because it's basically the centre of the universe. There's an entertaining irony here, because one of the notes I've been given is that the Bioflux shipping system has been fixed, I believe, by Sophia. This system involves the Gleba export ship flying to Gleba, picking up massive quantities of Bioflux and bringing it back to Nauvis. It's then stuffed into the storage system near the landing pad to gradually rot until it's requested by a train, at which point it's taken to the mall output station, loaded up and shipped off, often to the biter farm on the outskirts of the factory. The irony here comes from us noticing at the end of stream number 55 that the Bioflux supply to the farm had failed and all the biter spawners had uncaptured and are now producing biters that are trying desperately to nibble on the lasers. Fortunately, the lasers seem to be keeping them contained, but this does mean that we don't have a supply of eggs, so don't count your biters yet. I did a bit of investigating, and this is a touch spoilery, but I'll gloss over the spoiler parts as much as I can. In a nutcase, during the stream, I copied the Gleba exports ship to create a new one to work with another planet, and it turns out that interrupts on a ship are now like combinator settings. All instances with the same name are linked, and if you edit one of them, you edit them all. This seems to be the only part that's affected like this. The main route settings are still different. The request list is unaffected, although that is because it's unnamed. If we gave it a name, then I would expect it to then be linked. As I'm sure you can imagine, this came as a bit of a surprise to us, so when a flurry of alerts came in from Nauvis at about 11 PM, we decided it'd be safest to just end the stream right then and there and make it Sophia's problem the next week. Happily, the answer came to me in a dream and I realised where I should investigate, and so it shouldn't be too much of a problem. At least until the Rubia ship turns up at Gleba looking confused. So yes, Bioflux shipping was indeed fixed, and then I broke it by setting up another spaceship. Oops. Elsewhere on Nauvis, Gleba continued to cause issues, this time with some agricultural science packs rotting in an ice chest because there was a hiccup in the dry ice supply. This jammed the whole system as the chest filled up completely with spoilage, as the inserters were set to assume that this would never happen and only pass science packs through. This has been partially fixed by configuring the filters to pass both through. However, there's no prioritisation, or at least if there is, then it's the wrong way round, which means that the bottom chest is now mostly full of spoilage, to the extent that there's no room for the ice in there, and so the science packs are gradually spoiling too. This hasn't turned into a serious problem, because the packs flow round and are passed back in at the top, where their freshness is brought back up to 50% by the functioning ice chests, but it feels untidy. This is something that can be easily fixed by getting the bots to pull the spoilage out of the chest, but that's a manual process which feels a bit wrong. That said, since in theory we now have a healthy ice supply again, it shouldn't happen again. Probably. We didn't want the dry ice to fail like this again, and so Mike was asked to upgrade the dry ice production. I don't know if you've ever seen Mike build anything, but he tends to get a little bit carried away. And so this city block is bringing in petroleum gas from the oil processing area, then burning it to capture the carbon dioxide. I assume the hydrogen is being released as water vapour or something. The CO2 can then be chilled in another chemical plant using water as a refrigerant to produce the dry ice we need, but that also produces lots of hot water. And because we care about the local environment and the fish, we aren't just dumping this straight out into the lakes. Instead, it's being fed into the nearby boilers to be made into steam, and then condensed back into cold water just above. This water can then be reused to chill more carbon dioxide. This feels very strange indeed. We're turning hot water into cold water by boiling it, and that's an interesting choice. But it does seem to work, so I guess I shouldn't criticise. It does churn through a load of rocket fuel, but we've got plenty of that, so I'm not too worried. The upshot of all of this is that we're producing up to 640 dry ice per second and pumping it out to a pair of stations to be taken away to anywhere that needs it, such as the science parks. Dry ice has a spoil time of 4 hours, so we're not too worried about it sitting around for a bit, and when it does spoil it just sublimates, so there's no mess left behind. Looking at the production graph, we can see that actual production is 22,000 per minute over the last 10 hours. There's a definite pattern in there with some spikes, but the average is what actually matters. 22,000 per minute is 366 per second, meaning that Mike's build here is about double the capacity required. Honestly, I know I mock his overbuilding quite a lot, but in this case, I feel like roughly double isn't too bad. We've seen the mess it makes when we run out, so I think this is actually a reasonable scale. Well done, I guess. Let's move on. Saying nice things about Mike feels weird. Back to the science. Tristan has managed to import enough decent quality Foliax biolabs to make it worth setting up a pair of city blocks with them. They use a very different design because of the sheer speed these labs can run at. Having a sushi belt system wasn't going to be enough. Instead, he's feeding a stacked half green belt of each pack directly to the labs. This is sufficient, and there's room for more. You can see that the inserters along here aren't having to work too hard, but I think this wouldn't all fit onto a single belt. Through a cunning use of splitters and spaghetti, all the labs have belts of packs going directly into them, allowing them to gorge themselves however they want. This design means we can, in theory, have up to 40 packs being delivered to each lab. And a look inside reveals that there are potentially 59 so we may be in trouble later. Still, 6 of those packs are Foliax ones, which we don't generally need on Nauvis, and I believe some of the later ones might be functionally equivalent to earlier ones, so maybe we'll be able to do a straight up swap. I do hope so, or we're going to have some problems later. While we're here in this lab, we can look at a couple of the other differences in the Foliax labs. The first one is that they are fueled. We need to have a supply of some kind of fruit juice, in this case the nuclear isotope island punch. Delicious. We get through these pretty quickly, but they're being brought over from Foliax in bulk, so I don't believe this is a concern. We also use different modules. Here you can see the tolerance modules, which make the machines run faster and more productively, but also go some way to explaining that crazy thirst for punch. This gives us a total research speed of 233 compared to the up to 7 that we're seeing from the Gleeman labs, and more importantly, a productivity of plus 63% compared to 82. Wait, that's not the way round I expected. But the Foliax labs have another trick up their pulsating sleeves. Higher quality labs get massive science pack drain buffs, so with these tier 4 labs, we're getting a 28% consumption compared to the 50% consumption of the Gleeman ones, giving us a total science per science of 5.8 instead of about 3.6. So about half again as much science per science. We can also check the overall factory's science efficiency. I've been looking at the best of the best, but there are some older machines with older modules around as well. In the last 10 minutes, we've done 60,000 science at a cost of 15,000 science packs, so that feels like a nice neat 4 science per set of packs consumed. I'll take that. Interestingly, if we zoom out on this graph, we can see that they're almost the same shape, but not quite. There are some extra spikes on the science produced that aren't on the packs consumed, and this is because we're still doing some of the infinite Foliax researches which use different packs on a different planet. And you can see these bars match the extra bars we saw before. This system isn't recirculating the agricultural science packs for refreezing, which is a bit of a concern. We've seen a lot of spoilage on the belt being taken away for burning, but it's a tricky one to decide how to fix. Maybe a good way would be by looping the belt up into the disposal route and then piping it back to the fridge boxes. Currently, there is a limit to how much can be put onto the belt, no more than 400, and that certainly helps. It prevents us having a full belt all going off at once, but it could be even better. Part of finishing Pelagos was linking the decomposition science packs into the general system. You've seen them being launched and brought over. Mark has arranged for them to be dropped down onto Nauvis and put into storage. However, this is a little tricky as they can't be kept fresh like the agricultural ones can. Fortunately, we've done most of the science that requires them, and so until we update to 2.1, we're just going to keep shipping them over and letting them rot. Once we upgrade, perhaps we can come up with some kind of on-demand system to only bring them over when we actually need them. The other part of this is that Tristan has started requesting them to be brought to the science parks. Once again, we're treating them like normal science packs and ignoring the decay, which is not ideal, but it does keep the system running. The other more exciting side note about Pelagogian science is that we've finally brought over the small number of Foliaxian packs to Nauvis to allow us to do the Siren's Rum research. This is the one research that requires both Foliaxian packs and the normal ones, and we never had them in the same place until we went to the extra bit of effort here. So this was done manually as a special delivery, and then loaded into a lab by bot, and we can see there's still about 40 of them left in this first lab. It was a pretty easy research, allegedly taking 10 packs, which fits with us bringing a round number of 50 over, except that with the productivity boost we discussed earlier, that doesn't really add up. That's a bit of a mystery. Finally in this area, Tristan has sorted out the warning lights we talked about before. We now have nice bright alerts telling us which packs we're short of. Currently the Pelagos science is low at only 262 of the 2000 minimum we like to see, plus there's an additional one which we're not talking about yet because that will be another spoiler. All of this comes together nicely to keep the science packs running very well. We can do about 6,000 science per minute with the Nauvian sciences and a fair bit more with the Foliaxian ones, and supply seems to be easily capable of keeping up with demand. I think science is in a good place. And since we found a happy note, let's end the video here. There's still more to talk about with the happenings on the other planets, but that can wait for another time. We'll be back to continue the stream on Monday at 7:30 PM UK time as usual. There's still plenty of planets to visit, so there's lots of pioneering to be done. If you'd like to try it out yourself, you can grab the Planetary Pioneers mod through the Factorio mod portal and use the seed 11111 to get your own copy of our universe, then let us know how you get on in the Discord server. I'll be back on Wednesday as well for a solo stream, perhaps still reminiscing about classic adventure games, and videos like this will be coming out on Fridays, so please make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss out. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.